Uh, I know when we sat down with you after the season, you talked a bit about taking a more prominent role on the defensive side. Now that we're in spring, what sort of changes have you and Alex tried to implement or seen on the defense, and what kind of expectations do you just have generally going forward during the spring?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's there's obviously a lot to that question. Um, it starts with off season. It starts with the way our guys are being developed, the plans for each one of them, each whether it's a returning guy or obviously we've got over 20 new guys that are obviously here right now. And so there's it's an individual based plan first on how we're going to make these guys better, where they're going to fit into our defense, how we develop them physically, how we develop them mentally. And I've been really excited about the progress we've made from January 9th on. It's been a quick turnaround, as we talked about, where you have the game and then a week later you're into off season. And our guys have handled that well, and they've handled it well, especially considering again kind of the condensed time frames. Obviously, we got a week 0 game coming up this year, and so that's part of the reason in starting spring ball a little bit earlier, having our spring game a little bit earlier, is that calendar is all pushed up. And so specifically for our defensive guys, I've seen a lot of big individual improvements, guys improving in the weight room, guys improving from a strength standpoint, a body weight standpoint. So I've been happy with the physical development. And then I think they're the natural progressions that you would expect in a year or two, which is guys understand the scheme better, guys get better physically. You bring in some talent that you feel like can come in and make an impact here quickly, which I would say what we've seen of those guys up to this point, we've been very, very pleased with. And then you make the necessary adjustments as coaches that are going to put our guys in position to be our best, and you go forward. And the reality is now, I mean, with the way that these rosters change, I mean, 20 plus new players. I mean, that's about a quarter of your scholarship roster that's here new, just for spring. We're not even talking about summer yet. And so, it's our job as coaches to obviously push all those guys individually to be the best they can and help impact our defense. But then it's also our job to find out, what are our strengths, what schematically is going to best help us to put these guys in best position, because what the answer was at times last year won't necessarily be the same answer this year, right? Those things are going to evolve and change, especially as these rosters fluctuate. And so, but we've really been able to take a pretty nice look at these guys first 2 days in. And I'll say this, we're excited about where we're headed defensively. We're really excited about some of the talent we brought in and then some of the talent on this roster that's been developed, and a very clear plan in place to play the way that we expect to play defensively, which I know I've addressed many times. We expect to be an extremely high level defense here at USC. No reason in the world why we can't and why we won't be. And we expect that will happen and happen soon.
Keely? I know this is a broad question, but what differences stand out to you maybe internally about the differences in this spring camp compared to the first one last year?
Everything, everything. Yeah, I mean, again, you look back at what you were doing a year ago at this time, and it's much different. Everything certainly is not so new. There's certainly been a focus on the new guys that have come in, whereas I think in a sense, maybe everybody felt like a new guy last year, both staff and players. We've had obviously very little staff turnover, which has been a great thing, a real positive, because we've had, I've got quite a few calls about our staff, which is to be expected with the quality of people that we have here, and for our guys to want to stay here, and that they realize what's coming here, and that's exciting. Yeah, I think you have a sense that we're building upon something now, as opposed to just starting something, that there's a framework, right, a foundation in place, and now it's time to really build. And I think our guys sense that. So yeah, I mean, I think certainly a lot less new, but at the same time, we've pushed the guys to understand that, what was acceptable 12 months ago is not necessarily acceptable now. If we're going to raise the standard of this program, it's got to happen in everything that we do. So we're way more advanced, certainly in every sense of the word than we were at this time last year, but the standards are also higher too. And so we're continuing to push them, and I've been proud of the way they've responded up to this point.
In that sense, how has your message to the team evolved now that you're not starting fresh and now you're in year 2?
Well, I mean, you still have, I think, your core beliefs, and guys have got to still understand that. You don't take it for granted. It's not like, well, we talked about this last year, so now all of a sudden we don't have to talk about it again. I think it's a lot of the same messages. I think it's just taking that bar and moving that bar a little bit higher in everything we do. Maybe the most simple form that I can put it to you guys. What it took to win last year is going to be the same thing that it took this year, but we're at a point where we can ask more of our guys, where they understand kind of what we're doing and also why we're doing it. At times last year, we asked them to do things and we got kind of the crazy deer in the headlights look, and not as much of that now. They know what to expect, and we've had a nice core of leaders that have really helped push it along.
RJ? Hey, Lincoln, last spring you committed to a lot of cross training at specific positions. I'm just curious with regard to offensive line, defensive backfield, maybe even wide receivers. Is that the attitude this spring, or do you feel like more guys have homes that you kind of feel comfortable with?
No, we'll continue to cross train. There's some guys we can do it with, like last spring, and then some guys we can't. Probably more guys this year that we can do it with, just because you've got a lot of people returning that have obviously a sense of what we're doing, and it's good to challenge them, to move them out of their comfort zones. You know, it had some prep for all the what ifs that are going to happen in the season when unexpectedly you lose 2 or 3 guys at this position, and this guy's got to move and that guy's got to move. So that's been good, and it allows us to continue to take a look at them at different spots, and then obviously some of the new guys at different spots as well. So we're going to try not to cross train too many of the new guys, especially the new freshmen early. That's the group that we try to protect, give them a chance to get settled in a position so that we can really see what they can do, and then take it from there. But yeah, and then some of it certainly is dictated by numbers. You know, we're a little low at offensive line right now. Waiting for those 4 other freshmen. Obviously, they'll be here in June, and another transfer or 2 potentially there. And so we're a little bit low there. We're a little low wide out right now. And again, we'll have some help, here pretty quick there. So a couple of places there I know from a depth standpoint that'll force our hand a little bit, but honestly we probably would have done it anyway.
Thousands of dollars in damage at 4:15.
Antonio.
Hey, Lincoln. I know Malachi had shoulder surgery in the off season. What could he do this spring, and what have been your first impressions of him after spending a couple of months with Malachi?
Yeah, he's had maybe not the most ideal start in terms of, had shoulder surgery in December, late December too, and so hasn't been able to go full go in terms of the off season and throwing. In fact, his first real day throwing actually was Sunday, our first practice, which for a QB, I mean that's that's like a golfer going out and playing a tournament without practicing or hitting balls for 3 months, and then I just go out and play in a tournament. It's kind of pretty unique. He handled it well. I mean, he's a pretty natural thrower. Yeah, he's doing well. He's talented. I mean, you can see that he's eager. He's got really 3 good guys in there to really, learn from, as well as the coaches. I mean, having Caleb and having Miller and having Jake, that have years in our system now that can kind of help him, has been a big plus. And he's done well the first few days. I mean, he makes some plays where you see his ability, and then certainly there's plenty of mistakes, and every single play we've got something to learn from. But he seems to take it and grasp it quick, and so yeah, excited about his ability, and not too many limitations this spring with him. He's got he's non-contact all spring, but our quarterbacks are anyway. So it's a good time that he, it's a good thing that he plays quarterback, allows him to get some reps. We'll have to be a little careful with him in the team settings, but we'll be able to do most of the things, which is obviously key for his development.
Adam?
Hey, Lincoln. We saw that Eric Gentry had surgery last month on his ankle. Just kind of what was the delay in having that procedure, and what is his long-term prognosis?
Yeah, we took a look at it after the season. He obviously finished the season with it. Never quite got back to 100%. I think there was certainly some hope that with a little bit of downtime and rest and rehab that we could potentially get back to 100%, go on the non-surgical route. And then eventually as the off season went on, it just wasn't making the progress that we wanted to make. It's nothing serious. He'll miss spring ball, but he'll be back very, very quickly after, and probably would have missed spring ball regardless of when we would have had the surgery. That probably would have been out, but he'll be cleared for summer conditioning. If expected, he'll get a full summer in and be ready to go in the fall. And this is a great chance for him mentally, having played a year and been in the system. It's a great chance for him to take a step back, really see it through a different perspective, see it from the coach's point of view. So he'll, he's got a great attitude about it, very high energy. So he'll learn a ton, and also gives a chance to develop some of the other parts of his body, right? Continuing to put weight and adding some of that mass that we obviously know that he needs. So we'll just take the time to focus in on the other areas, and then have him back full go this summer.
Ryan Young?
I know the offseason program is a key time for team building. Have any of the new transfers kind of asserted themselves as leaders in the way that maybe Shane Lee did last year?
Yeah. No, we've got, I think, several guys that have some potential and that we've already seen some cool moments from with the team. Mason Cobb comes to mind as a guy that's starting to, assert himself in that way, a lot like Shane certainly has for us. Jack Sullivan certainly has some leadership potential there. Christian Rowland Wallace for sure. Have seen some of that. Singer's a little bit more quiet, but he certainly leads by examples, a really hard worker. We've been, very impressed with just kind of his demeanor. And I'd say a little bit the same for Marshawn Lloyd. I think he's got some leadership qualities, very, very hard worker. It's been a good group. It really has. Tarquin's done a nice job. Jared Kingston's done a nice job. I mean, it's a, I've kind of said 2 years in a row that we're, at least kind of early on, been very pleased with. I mean, we've seen them 2 days here on the field. We haven't been at pad yet. So, I mean, obviously we'll continue to learn more about them as players, but how they've handled the offseason, their demeanor, wanting to come fit into this culture, wanting to win a championship, like the team first mantra here, like these guys have fit into that very, very well. And not a surprise. I mean, we were, as I told you guys before, we were very upfront with these guys through the process, that if that didn't quite fit with them, that this, wasn't gonna be the right spot. And these guys have been men of their words up to this point, and been very, very pleased with the new group of guys and how they've acclimated within our program and with their teammates.
Eric?
Hey, kind of a similar question, but about returners. I know just 2 practices in, but looking back at the offseason too, anybody that really sort of jumped forward and caught attention of you or assistants or Benny Wiley too?
A lot of guys really did. We had several guys in the defensive backfield that have put on some strength and some really good weight. That was an area we knew we needed to get a little bigger, right? And even, guys put on a little bit more mass and have a little bit more pop physically. And, and that's happened. We've seen, Kalen's put on some nice weight, Latrell, Prophet's had a really nice offseason, been excited about him. Jacoby Covington continues to just take huge strides and build on the momentum that he had at the end of the season. He's had a phenomenal offseason. Damani's had a good offseason. He's gotten back healthy, has been able to really participate fully for us here first few days, which has been a great sign. So really progressed. Our medical team has done a really nice job with him. Eric's already put on some really good weight. Obviously, we won't get to see it much this spring, but he was obviously a key figure there at linebacker. Garrison Madden, another guy, young guy that's done some really nice things there and put on some good weight. A few of the receivers certainly have as well, and been kind of impressed with them in that group and kind of how they're moving. And we've got some smaller guys that are pretty explosive in that room, but putting on a little bit of size and mass and adding some strength was a big part of it. And that group as a whole has certainly done a pretty nice job as well. So productive offseason. I mean, you can see the gains in this winter compared to last, with Coach Wiley having the full staff here, having the full offseason with them. Rachel Suba, nutrition, who we brought on. She came on. She was here starting in summer last year. The impact of her and her team, she is elite, and that's one of the positions that doesn't get talked a lot about, and man, it should. It is so important, and we felt like that was an area when we got here that we needed to take a huge jump. And having Rachel and her team there, and then teamed up with Benny and his squad, I feel like it's kind of been like our first true full off season with full staff, kind of everybody way we wanted it. We've done a few things different programming wise, both in strength and conditioning and with the nutrition, and the gains are there. That's why you have to invest in those things, because it makes a big difference, and we can see that just being on the field for the last 2 days.
Jack?
Hey, Lincoln, at positions where you've lost starters over the past year and over this offseason, have there been guys that have stepped up this offseason that make you feel like it's going to limit the damage of losing those starters from last year?
Yeah, there's two different ways of looking at it. I'll certainly get that way of looking at it. I mean, I don't look at it like, well, Voorhees isn't here anymore, or Tooley's isn't here anymore. To me, it's like you reset, and these are the players that you have, and you start figuring out how can we get the most production possible, out of these guys. And so, yeah, I mean, I think the defensive front is an area where obviously we're going to have some new starters. And as I know I've said a lot, our goal there is to increase production across the board and be a dominant unit instead of a unit that has one dominant player. And and we fell into that too much last year. I mean, we've all said it. We know it is what it is. And so with the additions that we've made, which we've all been very happy with, all those guys, Keon, Jack, Anthony, Jamil, have all had some really bright spots in the first 2 days. And then again, just some of the changes in the physical attributes and the mental side of our returners. That's an area where we certainly, want to take a big jump, and I'd say same thing, a linebacker, just overall the production, you feel like we've got a really good room. We've got some depth. We've got some real competition that's very apparent, here a couple of days in. That's going to be fun to watch. And it needs to be a room that, regardless of who starts or plays the most, or who's the backup, or what the rotation is, or whatever, we need to get extreme production out of that linebacker room. And so those are, defensively, I think those are certainly two areas that we needed to address and feel like we've addressed. And now it's develop on our side. And then these guys have got to compete, and they're certainly going to do that. So obviously going to be some new starters on the offensive line. So working to try a lot of combinations there and give guys opportunities, play some guys inside that have played outside, play some guys outside that have played inside. And it'll be fun to see. That's what's fun, is you take a guy like a Cortland Ford, finished the year really strong for us. He's had a really good offseason. He's really trimmed down. He's moving extremely well. And you take him and competing with some of the new guys coming in, or some of the younger guys developing in the program. And we just kind of got those situations all over the place. Running back's going to be a very competitive room, it looks like right now, which is, and there's obviously a little bit more depth in there and a little more size in there, which has been good to see. So yeah, I feel like probably more, just more competition. There's probably less position battles where it's kind of obvious like who the guy's going to be, and I think kind of for good reason. I just think the overall talent level, the guys we obviously retained and have improved, plus the guys we brought in, is just, it's at a different point than we were 12 months ago.
Greg?
Lincoln, Relic Brown, what did you think how he did last season, and where do you want to see him develop the most during spring ball?
Yeah, Relic did. I thought he did a nice job for a true freshman. I mean, and honestly, with considering, he had the high ankle sprain after the Rice game, which is difficult for a freshman, especially a freshman skill guy that's kind of wired like he is. That's a difficult thing to progress through, because it limits not just the game reps, but so much of the practice reps as well. And so that kind of put him on hold. And then I thought he kind of regained some of that and finished the season pretty strong for us. I think his role and what he was able to do at a high level increased as the year went on. And I think the offseason's been a nice chance for us to take a step back with him and really identify, here's what you did well. Here's where you got to become more consistent and more dependable and really understand the entire offense and your role in it. And because, certainly he's an explosive player and you want to have those guys out there. But those players they've got to be able to play, the plays when they don't have the ball, and they've got to be able to play when all the other stuff happens, not just the ball in their hands. And that's what he improved at. And that's kind of been our push to him, is that natural second year jump where you really understand the offense, your preparation goes up, your mental focus level goes up. He's still got several things on that he can improve physically as well. So yeah, we've laid all those out for him. He's been, I feel like he's growing up, he's handling things better. This offseason approach is better. So he's just got to keep going.
Thank you.
We have time for just two more. We'll go with Paolo.
Hey, Lincoln, the two quarterbacks you previously coached to the Heisman, the year after they won it, they were off to the NFL. With Caleb, I'm just curious what you anticipate that experience being of him coming back after that, and then just kind of what the expected benefit is of, having a third year with him now going into the season.
Yeah, I mean, I know it's going to get talked a lot about on the outside. I mean, it's not like Caleb and I sit there and talk about the Heisman every day. We probably haven't talked about it since the day he won it. And so I'll just draw back on, East Carolina with Shane Carden and Oklahoma with Baker, guys that I had, multiple years, more multiple year starters, and, all of them had, really good years, and then we're coming back for a next year. And so able to kind of draw back, as you said, it's been a while since I've been able to do that. So that part is, that part has been fun. And really, I think it's about, a challenge to myself and the coaches to continue to obviously push Caleb and identify the ways he got to get better and lay out that plan. And then a challenge to Caleb to continue to improve, and his goals as a player, both now and in the future, don't happen without him making drastic improvements. And that's kind of been our deal the whole offseason is, last year wasn't good enough, that we play and coach like we did last year, then that's not what this team needs, and not at all what we expect. And again, not defined by a trophy or an award or an outside opinion, defined by like our expectations and what we believe that we can do, and that it as together, and what he can do as a leader and as a quarterback for this football team. So we've really been able to push him hard. He's had a good off season. He's gotten back a little bit healthier. Certainly kind of past some of the things he was dealing with there at the end of the year, which is good, and really been able to push him here the last month. And gonna obviously push him hard and expect a lot of him here in spring ball, both as a player and as a leader.
We'll wrap it up with Mark.
Hey, Coach. I apologize. I had some technical difficulties in the beginning. Is there a reason for spring camp having the break in between after 3 practices and then coming back compared to last year when you went all the way through?
Yeah, not honestly, it's not ideal. I typically haven't done it. But having the week 0 game, we just like you start, because when you have a week 0 game, not only do you play a week earlier, you use training camp a week earlier. So our training camp's going to start, like somewhere between July 25th and July 27th. Which is early. So that means your off season's a week earlier. Which means and you kind of just start counting back. And you have things that you want to accomplish between now and then. And as we looked at the calendar as a whole and trying to set ourselves up to have as much success this season as we can, this is what made sense to us. Is we wanted to try to end spring ball a little bit earlier. So we're as the calendar falls, we're a week later than what we typically are, or a week earlier as far as the spring game. And but we still like to maintain these days in between where we can meet and coach and really develop these guys. So yeah, obviously it'll be a challenge, when the guys are away a little bit for spring break, of maintaining conditioning and all of that. We won't bring them back and throw them right back on the field. We'll get a couple of days of good training with them before we throw them back on the field after spring break. And our guys, it's obviously more pronounced than an off week, but we're going to have 2 of them this year now, and we'll need to be able to handle them well. So good practice for us in that. And again, felt like the benefit on the back end with the week 0 game was worth us doing that.
Thank you.